Welcome to the Reformed Stoic Podcast. Have a seat, grab a drink. Here we discuss religion, current events, philosophy, and everything else that matters. Pull up a chair, get cozy. I'm your host, Reformed Stoic. Let's get started. Mic check, mic check. What's up, what's up, what's up? Okay. I think we should be able to get through today. You know, I'm not really sure. Oh, what's this now? What's this? Dun dun. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, I think we need a new camera. Hope everybody's doing good so far this year. Let's go. Where's the video capture device? We got an alright show for you today. Just kind of covering the basics of what's going on out in the world. And my camera's just kind of not working all of a sudden. So let's do it! Wait, is it working? It was working earlier. It was working like before I went live, so I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what's going on, man. I'm gonna like delete OBS and reinstall it because it's just really running like garbage. My computer is at like 10% CPU load, and then I turn on OBS and it bumps up to like 80% CPU load, bro. It's like completely... The amount of CPU that OBS takes up, it's just kind of insane. And I don't really see how there could be any explanation for it. Anyway, the show's going to have to go on, regardless of whether or not I can get a camera going. Let's see, use preset, FaceTime, HD. This should be it, bro. Okay. Cool. Let's do the news segment! You're listening to the Reformed Stoic News segment. Let's go! Awesome! Alright, well, I just turned one of the mics off, and my camera's broken, and pretty much everything that has gone wrong can go wrong. Let's get started. It looks like you guys got a nice frozen picture of my camera to look at today, so hopefully that's enjoyable for you. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and start with dozens of Russian troops killed in deadly Ukrainian attack. Here we go.
Tonight, Ukraine's single deadliest attack against Russia in months, using American-supplied HIMARS rockets to level this vocational college that Russia had been using as a barracks for newly recruited troops in the east. Russia's Ministry of Defense saying 63 Russian soldiers died. Earlier today, Ukraine's military said as many as 400 newly recruited Russian soldiers were killed. Still, Russia is firing back, far from the front lines. Kyiv's mayor said air defenses shot down 39 Russian drones that swarmed the capital overnight. At night, I heard a very strong bump, said this man. The furniture even moved. The attacks mostly targeted the power grid, leaving many Ukrainians without heat and electricity in the bitter cold. Russia has launched these attacks since the fall, usually around once a week. But now, they're daily. This was the 5th straight day of bombardments. Do you think that the Russians could run out of missiles, run out of drones?
On the drones, it depends on how many Iran would be able to supply to Russia and how strong Western sanctions would be in reducing that supply. On missiles, now Russians are using their untouched spares.
He credits anti-air weapons provided by the US and Europe for swatting down most of the missiles and drones, helping keep the lights on the home front as this war stretches into the new year. And tonight, Ukraine's President Zelensky warned Ukrainians that Russia is planning another prolonged attack with those Iranian-made drones.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel.
All right, so yeah, it's always like Russia attacks Ukraine, Ukraine attacks Russia, back and forth, back and forth. Watch out, Wrinkles. Yeah, sure, we can take a look at the Andrew Tate arrest. U.S., this will take 6 months of training to use. Ukraine, best I can do is 2 weeks. Russia, send a missile attack, only kills 1 guy. Ukraine fires back and takes out a whole battalion. Is Russia getting their ass kicked? I'm not really sure. I just know they're going back and forth. God is in control, indeed. Glory, hallelujah. Woo! All right. Andrew Tate. Let's take a look. I heard he's already out. I spelt it wrong, but it was close enough, but it's not what I'm looking for. I'm pretty much at, like, such terrible CPU that I can barely function right now, guys. Can we type Andrew Tate? Can we do it? Andrew Tate. Okay, can we just... Okay. Come on, baby. Arrest. Okay, we can do it. We can type 2 words in the chat. We can do it. Andrew Tate taken into custody in Romania. Okay, 3 days ago. Is this the best we got? Yeah, sure.
Please bring me pizza and make sure that these boxes are not recycled.
A pizza box may have given Romanian police information in order to arrest Andrew Tate.
The world is influence.
Andrew Tate is a former kickboxer, Big Brother contestant, and far-right influencer. He was banned from Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram for hate speech and misogynistic comments. Tate's past claims include him saying women were partially responsible for sexual assault and that women belonged to men. Twitter CEO Elon Musk reinstated Andrew Tate's account in November. Since then, Tate has written that he never forgave mask wearers and said men are unimportant if other men do not fear you, your woman disagrees with you. On December 27th, Tate tweeted climate activist Greta Thunberg about his car collection and its enormous emissions. She responded with a fake email address for Tate to enlighten her. In a response video to Thunberg's tweet, Tate ordered a pizza that clearly showed the name of a Romanian pizza restaurant, which some speculated gave his location to authorities.
Welcome to a new episode of The Clown Show.
Romanian police released a video of Tate and his brother Tristan being taken into custody. Police video also shows guns, money, and knives allegedly found in the house. Andrew Tate, his brother, and 2 other people were arrested. In a statement, Romanian officials say the 4 people appear to have created an organized crime group with the purpose of recruiting, housing, and exploiting women by forcing them to create pornographic content meant to be seen on specialized websites for a cost. Prosecutors say Tate has been under criminal investigation since April. An attorney for Andrew Tate told CNN, quote, he was not arrested. He was detained for 24 hours. A court hearing is reportedly scheduled for Friday. Greta Thunberg's response was a tweet that said, quote, this is what happens when you don't recycle your pizza boxes. This is Inside Edition Digital.
Yep, I just never really trusted the guy. His rise was so artificial, just never heard of him, and then all of a sudden everybody's talking about him. Yeah, if you put a lot of stock into this guy, if you defended him a lot and talked about him a lot, now it's not going to make you look so good, but whatever. Glad I'm not the only one who thinks I'm losing my grip on reality. LOL at the end, this is what happens when you don't recycle your pizza boxes. Good of him not to recycle. Oh, whatever, dude. Dude has literally been flying in and out of Romania nonstop. It wasn't the pizza box. All right. Well, that's pretty much that. Most certainly not restarting anything, guys. I mean, you can see my screen. You just can't see my camera. It just is what it is, dude. I tried to change some of my settings. Everything was fine before I went live. I don't know, dude. We're just getting through it today. We're just getting through it. Dry Tortugas National Park in Florida Keys shut down after 300 migrants land. Here we go.
Dry Tortugas National Park in the Keys is temporarily closed because of hundreds of migrants who have arrived at the park over the past couple of days. Law enforcement and medical personnel are evaluating and providing care for about 300 migrants. They're also working on taking them to Key West. This shutdown is expected to last for several days.
Okay, that was pretty fast and furious. So, National Park in Florida Keys shut down after 300 migrants land. Then we take a look at the comments. Send them on up to the vineyard. Send them all to Biden's vacation home. Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are salty about the immigration that continues. You know, it just seems like on paper, if your country has problems, then maybe you shouldn't be taking in lots and lots of people. But, all right, we're kind of just speeding through them today, man. This is like a speed dating, speed news. Deadly flooding in California devastates homes and roads.
Oh my God, this is so bad, Mom.
The daring and dramatic rescues unfolded all weekend across California and continue today. A devastating deluge triggering a flurry of emergency calls as the suddenly stranded were plucked from submerged cars, flooded roads, and homes that took on water. This woman who tried to cross a swamp street this morning, thanking rescue teams who likely saved her life.
If it wasn't for you guys, we'd be in a lot of trouble. And don't do nothing stupid like I did.
After days of relentless rain, Northern California was pummeled with the brunt of a powerful atmospheric river, a band of moisture pouring onto the coast. In San Francisco, where the city nearly broke its single-day rainfall record, pedestrians floated down busy streets. Others used kayaks or surfboards. Statewide, as roads remain impassable, some are still under evacuation orders.
It was like Mother Nature came alive and declared war on Sacramento.
In Sacramento County, where there's been at least one death, authorities are bracing for more.
I've worked for the Cosumnes Fire Department, or previously the Elk Grove Fire Department, for 21 years. This is the most significant flooding I've seen in this area in those 21 years.
With two more atmospheric rivers expected to hammer the state later this week, mudslides, rock slides, and flooding are a major concern, especially with the ground already saturated.
Thanks for watching our YouTube.
I'm always hearing about it popping off in California, you know, forest fires, floods. Something about California. That was an interesting quote. It's like Mother Nature came alive and started attacking us. Mother Nature, we thank thee for the water and for cleaning our streets. Yeah, guess what, guys? It's not Mother Nature, it's Father God. It's not Mother Nature, it's the Heavenly Father God. And yeah, this is one that doesn't really go over too well with the climate change science people, because it's unironically just God, like, making it happen, baby. Making it happen. I mean, I'm not going to act like I know exactly how the weather works. I think God just kind of allows it to happen. God takes a look at the objective weather channel, you know, whatever weather channel God looks at, because he's never wrong. He knows everything. It's like, oh, it looks like there's going to be a huge forest fire / flood / earthquake right on California's face. Well, I better just let it happen, like the deists believe. The deists think that I just wound up the universe and I just let it happen. So, hey, you know what, deists? This one's for you, baby. Okay, anyway. Now you guys know how it feels to be in Rochester or Buffalo. Sending my prayers, healing, and strength. San Francisco just needs to sink into the ocean. Yeah, it's ironic. You know, like, on one hand, you got the far left climate change people talking about how California is going to sink into the ocean. And I think a lot of the Republicans are like, man, I wish you guys weren't wrong about this one. Why can't you guys be right at least one time? Okay. Moving forward, suspect charged in killings of University of Idaho students. We've been following this one. Yeah, I guess there's a guy on trial right now. It sounds to me like they don't know for sure whether or not he did it, but I'm hearing all kinds of interesting stuff. Like, he was like in a class where they were presenting the details of this case and all kinds of stuff I'm hearing about this one. Here we go. ABC News.
ABC News contributor and former FBI agent Brad Garrett joins me now for more on this. Brad, so far this suspect appears to have no direct connection to the victim. So how do investigators go about trying to uncover the motive here?
Well, that's a good question, unless he's provided them with one. I'll tell you, Diane, this case, has a different direction to it than probably any other homicide you and I have talked about. I mean, homicides tend to be driven by rage, revenge, greed, jealousy, etc. This is a crime that seems to me that the person really, it's something they really wanted to do. In other words, like, if you can believe this, satisfaction from committing murder. That does fit the profile of serial killers. I'm not suggesting this person charged as a serial killer. I'm only saying that the identity factor of where you identify with the crime, you live the crime, you experience it. I suspect if he was in this conversation with us, he could give you every detail as to what happened inside that house, how he got in the house, how he got out, who he attacked first, how he attacked them. Did any of them attack him, if that's the case? So you're talking about an entirely different type of individual.
Police say they identified him through DNA technology and tracked him down through the car. But this arrest still took weeks. Could the fact that the suspect was studying criminology and criminal justice, it has a certain level of expertise there, could that present challenges in this case?
I doubt it. Well, first of all, he apparently left his DNA at the scene, which I would have predicted his DNA would have been at the scene, only because in working dozens of stabbing homicides, it's very difficult to stab, in this case, 4 people multiple times and not cut yourself. And so I think they found his DNA at the scene. He has no record, so his DNA is not on file, but through genetic genealogy, they were able to track down through family records his DNA. So you have a DNA hit and you have the car that was placed at the scene, and I think between the two is probably the basis of the probable cause.
All right, Brad Garrett, this is a case we will be talking a lot about going forward. I'm sure we appreciate your analysis as always. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos.
All right, so it was a stabbing. I mislabeled it. I labeled it a shooting. He may have sickeningly challenged himself to defy the scientific capabilities of the profession that he is studying. Perhaps in a narcissistic way, since many people describe him as someone that needs to be correct and knowledgeable about every discussion. Since many people have described him as someone that needs to be correct and knowledgeable about every discussion. I feel like I'm kind of like seeing something here. And I'm starting to realize maybe why there's so many crime shows. CSI, NYPD, Blue, Law and Order, SVU. Like, everybody in the chat thinks they got this guy all figured out. Because many people describe him as someone that needs to be correct and knowledgeable about every discussion. Sounds like maybe he triggered a bunch of Redditors. I mean, I don't know. It sounds like the guy's a bad guy, but I don't know. As far as like a bunch of people describe him as someone who needs to be right, sounds like he probably just like triggered some Redditors, dude. Like, I definitely wouldn't really buy into that, but I don't know. The point is, a guy spurged out and killed some people, and now everybody in the comments is like trying to psychologically profile him. Yeah, dude, it's just whatever. Some people are just fucking nuts, man. Thousands mourn Pope Emeritus Benedict. All right, what is this? This is just my channel. All right, let's get that out of here. All right, so we're on our last 2 topics. Yeah, the cameras froze for today. I think you'll be okay, little buddy. Thousands mourn Pope Emeritus Benedict. So Pope Benedict has very recently passed. I remember hearing that he was sick very recently, so let's hear about this. NBC News.
Tonight, the body of Pope Benedict XVI lying in state in St. Peter's Basilica. An estimated 65,000 people filed through today to say their final goodbyes. Over the weekend, Pope Francis paid tribute to his predecessor, calling him so noble, so kind. The two men held wildly different worldviews and visions of the church. Born Joseph Ratzinger in 1927, He was the first German pope in more than a...
If anyone in chat has any insight on why you think Benedict resigned, why do you think that Pope Benedict resigned from being pope? Very interesting thing to speculate about.
1,000 years. A theologian, a strict conservative who put hot-button political issues at the center of his papacy, opposing same-sex marriage and women priests. Critics accuse him of not doing enough in the church's sex abuse scandal. But today, those waiting in line remembered him personally.
He remains a fundamental person for my life, and it's important for me to be here in Rome. It is like when a father dies, his sons go to him.
Filippo Toso took an overnight train from Venice to Rome this morning to be one of the first.
How was it? Amazing. It was not important to see, but to be, and to be here.
Mountain Patoric, an American Catholic living and working in Rome, had the rare chance to visit Pope Benedict lying in rest at his convent home on Sunday.
I've been bringing people to Rome for 20 years. It was the highlight of all my time in Rome.
History will remember Benedict as a traditionalist who bucked centuries of tradition, retiring in 2013. A radical precedent that will define the future of the Vatican.
Molly joining us now from the Vatican. Molly, what are we learning this evening about former Pope Benedict's funeral arrangements?
Now, we understand that Pope Francis will preside over the funeral mass on Thursday morning just behind me in St. Peter's Square. And Lester, we are also learning tonight where Benedict will be buried in the same Vatican vault under St. Peter's Basilica as Pope John Paul II.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to act like I know a lot about Pope Benedict, but they're saying he was a conservative. He had these conservative positions. They might have, like, forced him to resign. Something like that. Or he just wasn't wanted. Or he's just surrounded by people in the church who didn't ultimately agree with him on, like, anything. So, but, yeah, he was old. It seems like other popes don't give a shit, though. They just, like, they keep ruling and they're old. Don't you think you're a little old? Do you want to resign? What? No, I'm fine. Seems like popes are always old. Anyway, so many deluded people. Evil demon. Oh, come on. He wasn't an evil demon. Mrs. Alexander Sandra have been the key to my successful trading life. Okay. He is not mourned. The victims under his watch are the only ones who matter. Oh, damn, dude. Pretty extreme comment section. Religion has been compromised. Well, the Catholic Church has certainly been compromised. The Vatican, anyway. Prayers for the altar boy victims. Yep. You know, there were some comments the other day about how good the Catholic clergy actually is about coming forward. The reason people know about so many of these scandals in the church is because the clergy comes forward and is honest about it. So, anyway. World president. Let's go. Why Catholics have a pope. All right, so we have a sizable little 13-minute video here. Maybe I'll fast forward it a little bit. Ascension Presents. I'm not sure if we're allowed to watch this. I think we should be. I think it would be snobby if we weren't. This should be kind of just like something I can react to. I've watched this guy. I actually found this guy's channel a long time ago when I was just kind of like fishing around different Christian worldviews before I got sucked into other stuff. Let's go ahead and hear him out. Ascension Presents.
Hi, my name's Father Mike. Oh, start again. Okay, here we go. Hi, my name's Father Mike Schmitz, and this is Ascension Presents. So, the Pope, right? Not like our current Pope, but like the idea of the Pope is the reality of the Pope is a thing that a lot of times people don't understand, whether they're not Catholic and they're like, what the heck, what's the Pope? I don't think he's very important. Or they are Catholic and they're like, what the heck, what's with the Pope? I don't understand this whole thing. Because I think a lot of people buy into the idea that the papacy, is the way you say it, the Pope, the idea, the role of the Pope, is a thing that like the church invented. False. Actually, it was invented by God himself in the same way that God invented the universe. Here's a long story. I'll start way back in the beginning, well, not the beginning, but early enough in the beginning to give you kind of a context for how it's very, very, very clear that Jesus establishes Peter as the first pope, and that he expects not only Peter, but all subsequent successors of Peter to be that role of the pope role. So it all actually kind of starts in many ways with the kingdom of Israel. Let's go way, 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 way back. You have Abraham, and he has a son.
Let's go back to Israel.
Isaac, who has a son, Jacob. Jacob, his name gets changed by God to Israel. Okay, so Jacob/Israel has 12 sons. And one of them is Joseph with his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. But you have the whole rest, right? And so at one point, after years and years and years, these 12 sons end up being the names of the 12 tribes, right? So the tribes of Israel, so Israel/Jacob, who has his 12 sons, those sons become like tribes, so the 12 tribes of Israel, because it's based off of the 12 sons of Israel/Jacob, right? Okay. So this family, all these tribes coming together, they're made into a royal kingdom under one guy. His name is David. David brings all 12 tribes into one royal kingdom. Why? Because David is the anointed one, right? Remember Samuel, the prophet, goes to David as Jesse, his father, Jesse, and says, "Where are your sons?" And he shows him all these sons. Not that one, not that one, not that one. Oh, David, anoint him. He's the anointed one. He is the Christos, right? Mashiach is the word, right? Christ, Messiah, means the anointed one. He's the anointed one that brings all 12 tribes into one royal kingdom. David establishes the kingdom. You have Solomon, who's David's son, still the king, does pretty good, does pretty bad. The next son basically kind of breaks the kingdom because he's not a very good king. And so the kingdom of 12 tribes splits into 10 tribes in the north and 2 tribes in the south. And okay, that's how it is. That's how it is for a while. And then Assyria comes in from the north and destroys those 10 tribes in the north. In fact, they're lost to history. We have no remnant of them. There's no, they're gone, obliterated. Those 10 tribes gone. The only 2 tribes that are left are the tribes of Judah and Benjamin, and then you have some people, descendants of Levites, of course. Years and years and years pass, and then here comes Jesus. Okay, so again, I just did a lot of history in a very short amount of time. But when Jesus comes on the scene, what's important for us to understand that he didn't just come to save us. I mean, he did come to save us, but not just to come to save us. He came to save us through a particular means. Yes, through the cross, but also through the kingdom, by reestablishing the kingdom. Why? How do I know this? Well, because think about this. Every time in Matthew's gospel, in a lot of the gospels, but in Matthew's gospel in particular is very, very important because Jesus, his first words in Matthew chapter 4, what does he say? It says after he gets baptized by John in the Jordan, he goes out and does some battle with Satan in the wilderness, and he comes back to the north, to the Sea of Galilee. And his first words are, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." Now we hear that, like, oh, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Yeah, because that's just kind of a code word for like, I'm here, everyone, which, sure, fine, but no. Because Jesus came as the Christ, right? He's anointed. Holy Spirit comes upon him, baptized by John in the Jordan. Holy Spirit comes upon him, goes to the wilderness, comes back to the north. The kingdom is here. Why? Because the anointed one, the Mashiach, the Christos, is going to reconstitute the 12 tribes of Israel. He's there to bring them back together. He's there to establish the kingdom. That's what everyone was waiting for when it came to the Messiah. And where does he do this? This is so incredible. He begins this in the north. What about the north? In the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, the first 2 tribes of those 10 in the north that got obliterated. He starts right there with his first public ministry. And what does he do? In the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, he starts calling 2 people. He says, okay, Andrew and Simon, you come follow me. And then James and John, you come follow me. And how many people does he call to come follow him like that? There's many disciples, but there are how many apostles? 12 of them. Why? Because Jesus is very clearly reconstituting the 12 tribes of Israel. He's there to clearly establish a new kingdom. So in the old kingdom, there was a king. In the new kingdom, there is a king. His name is Jesus. In the old kingdom, there were the 12 tribes. In the new kingdom, there are the 12 apostles. In the old kingdom, there was a prime minister. In the new kingdom, there is a prime minister. If you flip ahead to Matthew chapter 16, you see what you see is Jesus do. He goes up to Caesarea Philippi. When he gets up to Caesarea Philippi, this place about 29, 30 miles north of Capernaum, which is around north of the Sea of Galilee, he asks his disciples, he says, who do people say that I am? And they say, well, some say Jeremiah, one of the prophets, Elijah. They're all wrong. And he says, but who do you say that I am? And Simon stands up and he says, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus looks at Simon and says, flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. My heavenly Father revealed this to you. Therefore I say to you, you are Kepha. You are rock. And upon this rock I will build my church. And the gates of the netherworld shall not prevail against it. Now there's a whole thing about going to Caesarea and Philippi and renaming Simon Rock and saying, upon you I'll build my church. Because if you ever go to Caesarea Philippi, it's pretty amazing. There is this massive rock upon which are built temples, pagan temples. And so Jesus, because he didn't have PowerPoint back then, he had to bring them 29 miles north of Capernaum to have this visual demonstration for them of here's what I mean when I say, Peter or Simon, now you are rock, Peter, and upon this rock I'll build my church. In case you might be mistaken enough to think that I'm saying, hey, Peter, you're a chip off the old block. False, because right behind him is a massive rock upon which are built temples, upon which are built churches. So it's very, very clear.
We're learning, brah. You're over halfway there. I got some thoughts on this after it's done, but I'm going to let this guy keep going. He talks pretty fast, so we don't need to fast forward it. The chatty fast talker.
To all the apostles that Jesus is saying, I'll build my church upon you, Peter, used to be Simon. Sometimes we call you Simon Peter still. He goes on to say, though, it's phenomenal. Why does this have to do with kingdom? He goes on to say, he says, I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Remember that word kingdom. Give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. What you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. What you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Now, if we were listening to it, like, wow, that's really cool. That's a lot of power. That's really interesting. Neat. Got the keys, like the key to the city. Well done, hometown boy. No. If you were one of the other disciples, one of the other apostles who were listening to Jesus speak to your buddy, who used to be named Simon, now his name is Kepha, his name is Peter, you'd be like, oh my gosh, Jesus, who's the Messiah, he's the anointed one, he's the king to reestablish the kingdom of Israel. He just made Simon Peter the prime minister. What do you mean? Because in the old kingdom, there was the role of the Al-Habayit. I got this from my friend Jeff Cavins, who he's a channel on this little channel too. Jeff Cavins talks about this, the Al-Habayit, which means over the house, the prime minister. So the role of the Al-Habayit over the house, the prime minister, was when the king was away, the Al-Habayit, the prime minister, had the authority of the king. And you can see this in Isaiah chapter 22, with this whole story about this guy named Shebna and Eliakim. If you read Isaiah chapter 22, Shebna was the previous Al-Habayit. He was the previous prime minister. And he did some not great things. And so the Lord said, no, I'm taking your role away from you, Shebna. I'm giving it to a guy named Eliakim. And here's how he describes the role of the Al-Habayit. He says this, on that day, I will clothe him with your robe, gird him with your sash, and give over to him your authority. Because this is the thing, the role of the Al-Habayit is not a figurehead thing. It's not a prime minister who's just like stands there and doesn't have any power. He has authority. That sash is a sign of authority, the robe is a sign of authority, and the word authority is a sign of authority. Goes on to say, he will be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and to the house of Judah. And I love this. Jeff Cavins points this out. He says, he'll be a father to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and the house of Judah. What do we call the Pope? We call him the Holy Father. In fact, even the word Pope comes from the Italian Papa. And then he says, I will place the key of the house of David on his shoulder. When he opens, no one shall shut. When he shuts, no one shall open. So here's Jesus at Caesarea Philippi, and he says, Peter, I'll give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. What you bound on earth, bound in heaven. What you open on earth is open in heaven. Or loose on earth is loosed in heaven. Every one of those disciples were like, oh my gosh, Jesus just made Peter the Al-Habayit. He just made Peter the prime minister. Peter now is in charge when Jesus will be gone. Because he gave him that role. Why? Because this is not just about Jesus coming to save every one of us. Yes, that is about that. But he came to establish a kingdom. He came to establish a church. And in that church, it has a structure. And in that structure, there is the role of the prime minister who has real authority. What he binds on earth is bound in heaven. What he looses on earth is loosed in heaven. He goes on to say, on him shall hang all the glory of his family. He'll be like a peg in a sure spot to be a place of honor for his family. That's the role of the Holy Father. He's a peg in a sure spot. You know, there's so much confusion. There's so many different beliefs people have. Are like, well, I think this about Jesus. I think that about Jesus. But the role of the Al-Habayit, the role of the Prime Minister, the role of the Pope that Jesus himself established is a peg in a sure spot. It's what unites all Christians. It's what united all Christians for a long, long time until recently. When I say recently, I mean 500 years for some, 1,000 years for others. But this is not something that the church made up. This is something that Jesus himself established. And did not on a whim in Matthew 16, but as part of his massive program to reestablish the kingdom of heaven on earth. Because the church is not some invisible, intangible kind of a thing. The church has a structure. Jesus is the head. He's the head of the church. And the body is not just this kind of wispy, amorphous nothing. It has a structure as well. And part of that structure is the apostles, meaning current bishops, and the Al-Habayit, meaning the current pope. And part of the structure are the bishops, the successors of the apostles, and the pope, who is the successor of Peter, that first prime minister, that first Al-Habayit. The great news is this is not actually meant to be a divisive thing. So for all my friends who are non-Catholic Christians, for all my Orthodox friends who were separated, this is not meant to be divisive. In fact, it's the opposite. This was meant to be, by God, it's meant to be a sign of our unity. The role of the Holy Father, the role of the Al-Habayit, the role of the Prime Minister was meant to be that peg in a sure spot that united the whole. It says, upon him the whole glory of his Father will rest. The whole glory of the kingdom would rest. The whole family would be united with this Prime Minister by the Pope. So the role of the Pope is meant to be a role of unity. So my invitation is, if you've never thought of this, if you're Catholic, you never thought about the fact that the Pope is meant to be a sign of unity, think about this. If you're non-Catholic and realize, wait a second, so the role of the Pope established by Jesus, not by some medieval church, but established by Jesus, is meant to be a sign of unity, then what's my relationship with the Pope? Is it possible that God is calling me to take another look at what I might have written off as being just another invention, what I would think of another invention of the Catholic Church? Or is it possible that God's inviting me to say, wait a second, maybe the Pope is meant to be a sign of unity for me too? I think it's something worth praying about, something worth considering.
Oh.
From all of us here at Ascension Presents, my name's Father Mike. God bless you.
All right. Well, man, you guys shared a lot of fun roasting this guy. John Cena, Squidward's house. Somebody's like, yo, why are we listening to Squidward's house? Okay, so my thoughts on this. Something went wrong down the line, clearly. And I'm becoming pretty confident in my position in amillennialism, that the millennium has happened. The 1,000-year reign of Christ on the throne was 500 AD, fall of the Roman Empire, to 1500 AD, Renaissance, Protestant Reformation, Enlightenment. That was the beginning of the demon being set free from the pit. So I would say that the problem in the church now is that the demon has been set free from the pit. Now, that's maybe not the answer that people are looking for. I think that medieval feudal times, fall of the Roman Empire, up until the Renaissance, I believe that we're lied about these times, that it was a less deceitful way of life. Like, was there any corruption in the church? Sure. The truth is I would love to learn more about it. I think we should do some medieval themed streams, maybe, where we learn more about medieval times and scholasticism and the old way of life under the church. But yeah, as far as like the Pope having too much power, it sounds like around the time of Vatican I, when papal infallibility was first flexed. This is when it was officially decided that the Pope was infallible, and ultimately I mean, again, going into details here, I think it's easier to just say that we're late stage and we're, hundreds of years deep into the deceptive age when the demon would be set free from the pit after the millennium, rather. So, Catholics, to them, this argument about Peter and the rock, Peter being the first pope, and then there's this unbroken line of popes. At some point, something went wrong, and the Catholic Church was tamed by the establishment. They were the last church to be tamed by the establishment because there's a serious fork in the road in history when it comes to the Protestant Reformation. You either side with the Protestants, and you think that the church was rightly called out and that the Protestant church had created a more correct, sophisticated theology, and that they guided us toward positive things like the Industrial Revolution, industrialized society, and ultimately democracy. Or you think that there was devious incentives and funding behind the Protestant Reformation, and that it was the beginning of a rebellion against the Catholic Church, which ultimately led to the Industrial Revolution, which is a bad thing, and democracy, which is a bad thing. And you're really going to have to think about the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, the Protestant Reformation, because this was a very clear turning point in history. And ultimately, I think that it was bad. And it took me a little bit of time to see that. There were actually times when I bragged about how Protestants kind of ushered in the not the Enlightenment, but the Renaissance. And the writing was on the wall back there, friendos. And, the church should be respected for its strength against the subversive mercantile forces. But Vatican II was like the last. It was like the beheading. Vatican II was somewhat like the beheading of the Catholic Church completely. And really, you could say they've been Protestantized. Things like freedom of religion. When it started out was freedom for all the different Protestant denominations. That's really what was meant by freedom of religion, and it paved the way to be freedom of all religions. And I digress, my friends. I just wanted to learn a little bit about the Pope, get somebody's perspective on it. I definitely wouldn't completely agree with Squidward's house / John Cena, but I'm to a point where I'm definitely not bashing the Catholic Church. I think with a strong revival in educated Catholics, people who want to be Catholic. I was watching Elliot Hulse's videos, and he's talking about, if you have Catholicism in your family, traditionally, it's just kind of like a return to tradition as well. My family was traditionally Catholic on both sides, so it's how I was born, it's how I was raised. And, I think you could try to work towards making a difference in a Protestant church or a Baptist church or an Orthodox church or whatever church you go to. I think salvation is through faith in Jesus Christ. So I just think things have been really rough with the Catholic Church since the 50s, and a lot of people have turned against it. And, there's people pushing it in the direction it's been going. Couple of generations of people who kind of side with like Archbishop Vigano could really make a difference. Dude, I watched the finale of Ozark last night, season 1. I'm in it, baby. I'm soy. I am sucked in. They got me. I'm infected with the Ozark virus, and I will be watching all 4 seasons. It's probably the most normie show I've ever watched, but hey, you know what? Let's cringe it. Okay, friends. Well, I'm sorry I didn't have a camera today. Y'all can just look at your beautiful comments on stream. I've had this issue before. As soon as I exit out of OBS and reopen it, the camera will be fixed. It's just that by the time I realize that, I've already started the stream and I don't want to do it. So we're all hoodie. What's up, Stoic? Happy New Year, bud. Let's debate. I could eradicate you. Damn, dude. We'll figure it out, Zobeezy. That sounds good. Just because your family is a certain denomination doesn't make it right. You should base your faith off of what is true. I think more than anything, the Catholic Church is true. Because Protestants opened up this black hole that made way for all these different denominations. Christians are drowning in confusion in too many churches, and it was a negative thing. It was a negative thing. I think it's a straw man argument when people say that Catholics believe in works or Catholics believe by salvation and works. I think that's a straw man argument. It's complex, guys. This isn't easy, you know. Take a good hard look at those times when I believe that Satan was set free from the pit to deceive us one last time. The end of Christ's 1,000-year reign. And I believe that 1,000-year reign was the unchallenged Catholic Church. And, Orthodoxy, the split between Catholicism and Orthodoxy, it wasn't nearly as big of a deal as the Protestant Reformation. Protestant Reformation started a rebellion within the church. I don't dislike Protestants, but there's a lot to learn about this stuff, my friends. There's a lot to learn about this stuff. Me too. That's why I put that pixel art gif there. I think I have smeared. Smeared higher on the IQ test. I was just thinking about last night how I want to say that way less, dude. There's a girl here that's like, can you guys stop saying smear? I was like, man, I haven't really thought about that in a long time. I will lay down my smears. Really, after all the Pachamama and a sissy gathering garbage, how can anyone think the Catholic Church is correct? Something happened to the Catholic Church, bro. There's a rebellion. There's a top-down rebellion. Check out the third prophecy. Check out Catholic priests talking about the third prophecy in the Catholic Church, a top-down rebellion against God. Everything is falling, you guys. Everything is falling to the New World Order. And if you pay close attention to how everything played out, the Catholic Church was the last to go. The Catholic Church was the last thing to fall. I mean, I'm not going to shove my opinion down your throat, but I was very frustrated with myself when I tried to blame modernism on Catholics, and it's just very confused, guys. I mean, how can you not call Protestants the modern church? They're the modern church, guys. They're the modern church. They paved the way for the prosperity gospel and the black hole of denominations. Think about it, my friends. I might be making stew tonight. I was saying I wanted to have my stew cooking while the stream was going, but that didn't happen. I haven't eaten anything yet today. My appetite has just been down these last few days, and it's not a bad thing, you know. I've been a little bit chunky for the holidays. I think my body's just kind of triggering a little bit of a fasting cleanse, but I might do a little stew making stream here in a few minutes. So if y'all want to check that out, we can hang out and make some stew. I think I might be getting hungry here soon. God bless you, friends. Thank you for being here today. Next podcast is on Friday. We'll have a better functioning setup by then. And stay tuned here the next few weeks, because I think we might be going back to 3 days a week. Some of my plans for this year have changed. But let's rock a couple of weeks, Monday and Friday. We'll see what happens. God